All right. Hello, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started here. Welcome to Frame by Frame. Tonight we have a very, very special guest.
Oh, thank
He's
you.
a writer, he's a producer, a screenwriter, and an MSUM alumni. Everybody give a warm welcome to Aaron Berg.
Everybody. Oh, of course. Thank you.
So you attended MSUM at one point in your life, and you ended up transitioning to Hollywood, and were involved in some pretty big movies. Can you give us just kind of a short timeline from when you were here at MSUM until when you were transitioning to Hollywood?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I grew up here. I'm from Fargo-Moorhead. I went to MSU for film studies back in the, I don't want to say a date. I don't want to say. But I was a teaching assistant in the film department for a professor named Ted Larson, who was there with Rusty Castleton. These maybe names you know, don't know. But I was in Weld, projecting movies on 16 millimeter, and I was doing all the classes, and I loved it so much and hated the cold so much that I said, I got to go somewhere warm and somewhere else where they take the next level up for school. And so I ended up transferring out to UCLA in California, and from there, I tried to sign up for film class. And they said, well, you got to wait in line a little bit. And I said, okay. And basically, I ended up taking a screenwriting class. I'd never taken a screenwriting class before. I was only making movies here with me and my friends in our backyards. We were ripping off Tarantino, Spielberg, Lucas, Kurosawa, Kubrick, whatever. But I didn't know how to do the 2-hour movie. And taking that first screenwriting course kind of blew my mind and opened it up. And I went, oh, that's how you tell a 2-hour movie. That's the 3-act structure. Those are all the secrets. And so from there, I ended up getting a screenwriting degree in film school. That became my focus. And then out of school, I had written a couple of scripts. One of them, I entered into what's called the Nickel Fellowship. It's a screenwriting contest that's put on by the Academy Awards for amateur screenwriters. And I happened to do very well in that competition. I placed in the top quarterfinalists. And from there, I started getting emails and phone calls from managers and agents and producers who were sort of also on the outskirts like me, but also trying to make their way in the business. And out of those meetings and networking and all that is how I started building up my career. And I met someone who was very much like me, but was a manager. He's still my manager to this day. We hit it off right away, geeking out on all of our favorite terrible movies that we grew up loving, that are terrible movies. We didn't talk about the good movies, because that's easy to agree on, right? We all know what the great movies are, but what are those terrible movies that you love to rewatch? And can you find someone that connects with you in that way? I said, okay, that's got to be my guy. He sits me down one day and goes, okay, we got to write another script that we can sell to the studios. And I said, what's that? And he goes, well, a big movie idea. And I pitched him this, I pitched him that, I pitched him this. And every time I pitched him, he said, that's being made over here, that's being developed here, someone else is already doing that, someone's already beating you to that. And I felt a little frustrated, and I couldn't find an idea until finally I pitched him an idea that I liked. I didn't think he was going to go for it, but he said, go write it. I said, okay. I wrote it. 6 months later, it sold to Universal Studios, and my career changed overnight. But that process took more than a couple of years. Like, it took a lot of years of grinding away out in LA, working really hard at it, never giving up. And so, yeah, eventually then I sold that script, and that's how I got my start in the business. Yeah.
What was that script that you sold?
So that script was called Section 6. It's a spy thriller set in London in the 1920s. It's based on the true historical origins of the spy agency MI6. And it is not a James Bond script, believe it or not. It's actually an Alfred Hitchcock nod. The reason being, because I'm a big film geek, and I loved Hitch's movies, not just his American films, I loved his British films. He made a ton of British films in the 1930s that were man-on-the-run, spy thriller movies, and I was curious where those came from. And when I found out that they were all based on those books were written by spies from World War I. And I just thought there's material there that's really interesting. And so I liked the idea of what was the very first spy for MI6. Basically, who's 001 in 1920? And that's the script that sold.
Kind of sidetracking, going backwards, you said you were kind of ranting on bad movies. Mm-hmm. Can we all hear what the worst movie is?
The worst movie? There's no worst movie. They're all good.
Can you give us
on
a top
some level.
four?
I mean, Disaster Artist is great, right? Or not Disaster Artist, but
The Room.
The Room.
Fantastic. Love to hate that one. I don't know. Like, I have obscure ones. I mean, I could talk all day about genre stuff, right? So I immediately go to action movies, and I'll go to a Chuck Norris movie called Invasion USA from the 80s. It's a terrible movie, but it's wonderful. I like this movie called Robot Jocks. It's a sci-fi movie from like 1989 or 1990 or something like that. It's essentially Pacific Rim, but set in the 80s. Like weird, obscure movies like that. I honestly don't think there's any like really, truly terrible movie. I just like stupid movies.
It's entertaining.
Yeah. And you can learn so much from bad movies, almost more, because you can see the flaws and you can see what they did wrong than you can from the great movies. Great movies are intimidating to try and figure out. But I learned a lot from rewatching a lot of bad movies.
Very cool, very cool. Out of your entire career, mainly the ones in Hollywood, what kind of movies have you worked on? whether that's screenwriting, producing?
Yeah. So, I mean, pretty much everything I've been involved on professionally has been within the studio system, one way or another. So it's always going to be studio films, genre movies. I've worked a little bit with smaller companies. You guys might know these companies like A24 or Black Bear Pictures. I've done work with them, smaller sort of horror genre stuff with them. But I've also worked with all the studios and all the streamers. So all the big ones, Universal, Paramount, Warner Brothers, Disney, 20th. I've also worked with the streamers, right, like Netflix, Amazon's developing feature films, but also a lot of TV series. Sold a couple of TV shows. I've done a lot of work there. TV is very different now than it was when I was kind of growing up. There's not a lot of network shows. It's all content streaming, 10-episode seasons. But I've been able to work on those as well.
Correct me if I'm wrong, you're a script reviser as well?
Sure. So part of my job as a professional screenwriter isn't just to write a script that I sell. I do a lot of work rewriting scripts. I'll do a lot of work adapting material, doing assignment work for the studios, being hired for them, whether it's a video game or a book or a comic book. I've worked on and developed lots of different things. So yeah, I'll do rewrites and polishes. There's different stages and steps of things you can do as a professional screenwriter in the biz.
Are there any upcoming movies or TV shows that you're working on that you can tell us about?
That I can tell you about. I mean, there's stuff. Yeah, no, it's fine. There's stuff that's always in development. I have this one project. I'll kind of share a little bit about it. I don't want to give too much away, but I'm developing a project right now. It's kind of an action drama project. It's with the filmmakers who made the Extraction movies. Chris Hemsworth, I think they're on Netflix. A director named Sam Hargrave, up-and-coming young filmmaker, also just shot a movie called The Matchbox Movie based on the toy Cars with John Cena. We've got a project with him that's an action thing that we're doing, and our producers are this company called $7, and they are Dwayne Johnson's production company, The Rock. So we've got that going as a feature film, and that will be something, maybe not this year, but next year.
I think that's kind of all the questions I have for you. I do have one I want to ask you personally.
Please, yeah.
Who is the coolest person you have worked with so far? Actor, director, producer?
I could name drop quite a few, and they're all very nice. So I would say I've been very lucky in what happened to me and how I got very lucky. And the script that I sold was kind of a big script sale. In its time, it had gotten into a big bidding war in town. All the studios had made an offer to buy the script. And so because of that, afterwards, I got to go around town meeting everybody, and everybody was super nice to me. And I got to meet some amazing people, both at the studios, the executives. I got to meet producers. I got to meet filmmakers, and I got to meet icons, people that were people I grew up loving. You know, like some of it's very brief, and you get to say hello, and you get to hang out. Some of it was a little bit more than that, developing projects with them. I mean, I could talk about Ridley Scott, Steven Spielberg, and George Lucas, and Lucasfilm, and all the people that Kathy Kennedy, who just switched over, Filoni, who's there now. The two big names that come to the top of my head that I thought were really easy to work with, really super nice, and really fun one was Robert Downey Jr. and his wife Susan, who produces all his stuff. He knows how big he is and how intimidating that can be when you walk into a room, and he makes you feel very welcome. And same thing with Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. So I worked on a G.I. Joe movie years ago, and I still have been working with him on other things throughout the years, but when I first met him, really intimidating, not just because he's the biggest movie star in the world, but he's a big guy in general. He knows that as well, and he's very good and has been doing it for years of making other people not feel too scared of him. And he was super supportive and very nice as well. So yeah, RDJ and The Rock, really cool guys.
Could you call him right now?
I could get a hold of The Rock. RDJ's a little busy. But, yeah.
Okay, I think we're going to open it up to the audience, and you see someone
Sure.
interesting? You just
Yeah,
wanna...
absolutely. I'll go to Jake, because we hung out.
When it comes to getting credit for these movies that you're working on, you know, you throw out like a lot of names, but in terms of getting IMDb credit, are you what they call like a ghostwriter who kind of comes in and helps, but they don't want to spread the credit? Or what is that?
Not officially a ghostwriter. Those sort of exist and sort of don't. The way you get credit is an arbitration that's done with the Writers Guild, the WGA. I'm sure you guys all know that there's like 20 writers, and then there's like 20 executive producers, and most of those executive producers are writers who aren't getting paid or are sort of getting this credit. To get those is really hard. It's a process, it's a step. There's different ways of how you go and get a credit, and there's different ways of how you get credited depending on how much you contribute to the script. I've had things where I've been the only writer on, then a writer comes in, rewrites it, they throw out that script and bring mine in, and I end up not getting full credit for it. It's weird how the process works. Sometimes it's the WGA, sometimes it's a producer fighting to give you sole credit, and sometimes it's a very rich, highly paid writer that comes in that they have to give the credit to because they're trying to promote and market the film as that writer's movie. So some of that has impact on credits.
I was just gonna ask, like, what project that you've worked on has been like the most successful, like generated the most amount of money?
Most money for me or most money for someone else?
Answer both.
Answer both. I've lost people a lot of money. That's always fun, studios. Not me personally, but mentioned G.I. Joe. So this was interesting. It was actually my first paid studio assignment after I started working in the business. So I got this job. I had to go in. I had to pitch the studio. I had to pitch the big producers that are on it. I had to pitch a director. I had to pitch the star of the movie. And it was an idea that I just made up. And I made it up because I knew G.I. Joe. I knew the cartoons and the toys and the comics. I grew up with them. I had my version of what I thought it should be. And I knew what I liked and didn't like about the other G.I. Joe movies in the universe. And so you go and you pitch all this stuff. And that project was a lot of fun to work on. And everybody said yes to everything we were doing. And we almost got that movie made, but didn't. We got hung up in some development stuff. We ultimately didn't get that G.I. Joe movie made. But what does get made is a couple other G.I. Joe things, a bunch of TV shows that got spun off, that got developed, that was from my script. Those didn't get made. But the Snake Eyes movie that came out a couple of years ago, that was my first act. That whole movie, like my first act, had that character doing a lot of that stuff. And there's a good example coming back to credits where I wrote a lot of that and they borrowed from my script, but I don't get any credit for that movie because I didn't work on that movie technically. And when you don't own G.I. Joe, it's the people who own G.I. Joe determine that. That ended up, in a weird way, making people a lot of money on G.I. Joe. The one that made me the most was the spec script that I sold. That one just was crazy. It made me a lot of money, and I was sort of in a different place overnight than before.
When you start to write your scripts or your ideas, what makes you get that engine going?
It's always different and always the same, right? It's a good question. Am I working on assignment? Am I working on a spec script? Spec meaning speculative, my own script that I want to write. Most of the time, because I'm a big film geek and I love movies, it'll always come back to some movie that I'm like, oh, I want to do my version of that movie. And it won't be the most popular idea of that movie, but it'll be a movie that maybe you've never heard of, a movie called Wages of Fear, which gets remade in the 70s, Sorcerer. And I just love this movie. I love the engine of it as a storyteller. And so I might take that idea and be like, what's my version of that? So I'll start with something that's familiar to me, and then I'll go, okay, how do I make sure this version has never been done before, and I know that no other movie has ever done this version, and how is it unique and stand out? So I'll kind of start there in the soup of it, the DNA of it, if that makes sense. And back, left.
What was the process of getting a script solved to a major studio lighting?
I don't know. It was weird. I can tell. So when I did it, I had no idea, right? I mean, I kind of knew generally the business and how to do it, and I know now how it happened, but at the time, I didn't understand what was going on. What you have to do is you have to have a script, and you got to have some kind of representation read it and vouch for it. So if that's a lawyer, an agent, a manager, a producer, an actor, a director, someone that reads the script and goes, hey, this is cool, then they've got to eventually get it to someone who can, like the studio execs or someone that can be interested in buying it. It doesn't have to be the studio, it could be a financier, it could be an investor, someone like that, and then they'll figure out how to sell it to a studio. Now, at that time, that was strictly like my manager gave the script to an agent, together they gave the script to a low-level junior executive at one studio. That executive read it and loved it, but his assistant emailed the script to their friend who worked at another studio, and then my script got out and it was crazy. So weird things like that happen. But mostly it's just you got to have representation, and then they've got to be able to bring it to someone at the studio who will buy it. And back, and they'll come to you.
Can you speak to your experience with this most recent screenwriter strikes?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I still got the signs. The earlier one, whatever it was in 10 or was it 7, I wasn't in the business or a part of it. I was in LA for it, but I wasn't marching, but I was in support of it. But then in this last one that we had, I was there. I marched at all the studios. I was there carrying the signs. It was a very interesting time. It was supposed to be a very short strike. It got prolonged for a lot of reasons on both sides of the argument. And what was supposed to be like a 6-week strike, I think ended up being over 6 months. The Actors Guild also had issues, and they were striking with us. And so there was a period where we were walking side by side with actors. I remember I was outside of Sony walking, and I'm hanging out with David Duchovny, and we're just chatting about the strike. We're not talking about the X-Files. And I'm like, I just want to talk about the X-Files. You know, we're there for a different reason. It was a surreal thing because you're just one of the many writers that's there. I'm not on the committees. I'm not discussing it or negotiating it. I'm just supporting it. So really, it was just me marching in some hot summer weather in LA, walking around the studios and having fun with fellow writers and other actors that I knew. That's kind of what the experience was.
So how do you stay afloat financially, those type things?
Yeah. It helps for me to have written other scripts and sold other projects that can bankroll sort of those, 6 months. Other writers, devastated. It was devastating for a whole bunch of low-level writers, especially staff writers on TV shows, because we were all stopped and not working. You just, like any artist, you have to figure it out. You have to find a way to stay afloat. You try to, as a professional writer, bank on those things or bank on not getting an assignment or getting a job or selling a script, and you've got how many months can I do this? So when you do get that big sale or you get a job, you got to plan ahead for it. Part of it is that. So building a war chest for yourself.
What would you say is the longest duration of time you spent a single script?
So again, that's an interesting question. So is it that it's a project that keeps coming back and keep getting notes and keeps coming back, or is it something that I personally hours into myself passionately about, right? Like it works two ways. A spec script that I wrote, for example, that first one that I sold, I put so much time into it, probably a good solid 3 months, 2 months of research, because I had to learn about what it was like living in London in 1920. I didn't know, right? I only knew what the movies told me and what 1920s London looked like. I didn't actually know what it was really like. So I did a lot of research there. Took up a bunch of time, and then it takes, a little over a month to knock out a first draft. And then after that, I'm working on that thing, with notes and polish for a long time, because we sell it to Universal. Once it sells to Universal, Universal's got notes. So they're going to bring you in and do notes. And now the producer they attach, they've got notes. Now you're going to do those notes. Oh, they bring a director and the director's got some notes. Now you come back in and do those notes. So that one, ultimately, I probably spent 2 years on and off, a good 8 to 12 months, heavy on, and then another year on and off. We did rewrites out in London. They flew me out there with the director. I did rewrites on the Universal lot, was hanging out there for a summer. So big chunks of time on that. And then there's this other script that I wrote very fast and didn't put a lot of time into, but won't go away. Keep getting notes from the producer on it every 3 months. They're like, hey, another idea that I have. Could you do this real quick? Could you just change this real quick? Could you? And I'm like, okay, all right, I'll do another pass. Sure, no problem. So it ebbs and flows that way. Really, it's interesting though, because you think you write a script and you're done. You knock out whatever that is and you turn in your draft and you're done. You're not. You always keep going. There will always be notes until someone's satisfied. So yeah, it can range anywhere in there. Fastest I've ever worked on a script though was like 15 to 20 days where you just knock out that draft and flip it over. I've done that really fast, but then there's always a few more months after that to try and sell it, if that makes sense. So there's the creative process and then there's the business side of it.
How much writing have you done in the medium that hasn't sold in order to get to that success, and how do you deal with the rejection, or what do you do with that?
There's lots of that. Right? So you'll always hear about the success and the script that sold or the project you're working on, but not the 10 others either developed in between it or had written, sort of finding your voice. When you guys are here, that's kind of what you're doing, is trying to find your voice as storytellers, filmmakers, writers, whatever. So there's a lot of that. And then in between, there's some, right? So when you work on spec and you're writing your own stuff as a professional writer, you try to make sure that the thing you're spending your time on is not going to be wasted. So you want to make sure that you have a plan for it, because that's a lot of time and commitment for something not to pan out. Once I became more of a professional writer and been working in the business, I don't have as many scripts that just sort of I flip over to my team and they go, no, thank you. Usually when I start working on it, there's a plan already in place that's going to hit the market or hit a buyer in the right way. But before I had that break, yeah, I have at least 10 to 12 scripts that collect dust, and every time an assignment comes up or something, I'll go to one of those scripts and I'll be like, what can I steal from myself? Because there's something in there that I liked. That's on the screenplay side. Development side, if you're pitching something or you're writing an outline or something like that, lots of wasted stuff. Again, some of that can be recycled as you're going through it, but development is a different beast as well. There can be multiple phases of those things.
What project or script, I guess, are you most proud of, out of all the movies and television that you've written for?
Not one in particular. I'm most proud of the experiences that I've had on a lot of them individually. Like, for me, scripts and screenplays, they're blueprints for the thing I want to see. So I never actually feel a sense of pride or accomplishment when I write fade out at the end of it. Out of that experience, the pride that I always feel is was this a fun project? What were the relationships like? Who was I working with? What stories do I have to tell out of it? I don't think I've ever come out of a single script feeling like, woohoo, I've done it. But the pride I have, I think, is in just the process and people I get to work with. And it's not just the famous actors and stuff, but just the regular assistants that you meet. They're an assistant 10 years ago, but now they're a producer. You guys were friends. We were there together working on stuff. And that stuff's kind of fun to be proud of.
What was the jump from Moorhead to LA like?
I was young and it was not intimidating. It was fascinating. When I was here, I loved going down to the Twin Cities and being around the energy of a big city. When I got there, it was just sort of fun to be a part of whatever that culture was. Loving movies and being a film geek, there's a lot of movies you can watch that are shot and take place in LA. So I went around town looking for those things from movies that I loved and had seen, whether it was an Orson Welles Touch of Evil movie from the 50s or Speed with Keanu. I know where those are now. And so part of that transition was me going around around town, figuring out the town, figuring out the city. And I think that made me feel comfortable. I didn't miss home. I wasn't intimidated or scared. I sort of had something to do. It was easy to transition from that point of view. And then also at that time, there was, a lot more job opportunities in LA. Now it's really, really hard to sort of get your foot in the door in any sort of jobby job. But at that time, I got a job early on, a part-time job working for Warner Brothers, because it was when we were doing physical discs, and they have all these special features on them. None of that is on streaming anymore. But when I was there was a huge opportunity to just be an assistant or a coordinator at the studios to just work on special features. So I got my foot in the door there very quickly, and I found it to all be very comfortable. And again, I think it just sort of helped that I just love movies, and any meeting I went into, any interview that I did, being able to just geek out on a movie or reference it and know what someone else's favorite movie is, and just goes, oh, I love that scene, do you remember this part, has always helped me. That's kind of always been unique for my journey.
What are your thoughts with streaming?
Oh, I got a lot of opinions about it. We'd have to do a whole other hour. I love going to the movies. I love the experience of a group of people coming together. It's very important and special to me. Streaming is a different thing. I also have experience working in the home entertainment special features group, so we were producing content that was supposed to be watched on your laptop or on your TV for that sort of at-home, singular experience. It's a different relationship with the story you're telling, but it can be just as impactful and fun and engaging as the other stuff. It's just the downside is you don't get to have that theatrical experience at the end. The streaming stuff is a very good place to do that style of content. I just really, really hope we keep making movies for the theaters. It's dying and dying and dying. It's getting harder and harder and harder, but I hope it finds a way to continue and that we can have both, because I think we need both.
Okay. Yeah. Kind of speaking of being an MSUM alumni, do you have any words of advice for these young filmmakers trying to make it in the industry?
Whether it's in Hollywood or whether it's you want to go indie art house route or you want to go production route, whatever you're interested in, I think the thing that was always important to me and always came back to me was always listen to yourself, listen to your inner voice, listen to the thing that you know you like and love and want to do. Be honest with yourself about it, but follow your voice. Don't follow what someone else tells you to do. If it just bumps inside you and it's not quite right, just listen to yourself and follow that voice. It will lead you to where you ultimately want to go. Where that is, who knows, right? You'll adapt as you go. You'll go this direction, that direction. But if you follow your voice, it should be a place that you are wanting to pursue. So I would say that from Moorhead, on MSU on, just listen to yourself and what you want.
Us being a film education organization, we try to watch a lot of movies. Could you give us 4 movie
My
recommendations?
letterboxes?
That could work too.
Go ahead.
Movies that you think we should see.
We like to do letterbox recap stories.
Sure.
At the end of the week, so you'd be doing us a favor. Being easy.
I mean, I can pick what I think are the 4 seminal films. I could pick 4 movies maybe for screenwriting. I could pick, I don't know, how to break that down. I would say, look, I'll just pick the seminal films that I think are really important for people for film students. You love movies and you love films and you love storytelling. You want to watch these movies, but you want to watch them at different periods of your career or your life, because they'll always kind of come back and show you something you didn't see before. And those films are pretty consistent for me. I mean, they're iconic, and I'm sure you guys have already seen them all. I mean, they're going to be Citizen Kane. I go back and forth on Seven Samurai and Rashomon for Kurosawa, Lawrence of Arabia, David Lean's film. And then as a screenwriter, I'll say Chinatown as one of the perfect screenplays. Whether you like the movie or not, I think it's one of the great movies, but it's definitely one of the great screen. I could also throw out the bad ones too, or the fun ones, or anything like that.
We got plenty of film in this camera. I think that's about all the time we have. We appreciate you being here.
Oh, of course.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Sure. Thank you.